AAEEBL is the Global Professional Association for the World ePortfolio Community, and in Boston every year, and I think there's a slide about this conference, maybe John, it's the next one, I don't know, but yeah, right there. We're having this conference as we do every year in Boston. It's July 16 to 19 this year. And you can just go to able.org in order to register and find out more about this annual conference. It's the only annual conference about ePortfolios in the United States, and it is the largest in the world. There are other conferences around the globe, but we gather about 300 people a year every year in Boston, and we're looking forward to another big gathering this coming July. I hope that you'll join us. And now I'll turn it back to John and Helen for the webinar, and thanks very much.
Okay, we're going to start with a poll. We've done this regularly during the webinars. It lets us first introduce where the poll section is and gives us an opportunity to get a sense of how the people in today's audience are currently using ePortfolios. So if you can use the A, B, C, or D next to your participant windows and just click on the letter that represents how you're using ePortfolios. And if none of the references here or letters here represent really what you're doing, then you can use the chat window to type in another. So we'll go ahead and take the poll now. Got a couple people having voted, but we'll keep on. This is like Chicago, vote early, vote often. Actually getting more comments in the chat window here, and so campus is not using it yet. Okay, what I'm going to go ahead is go ahead and display the poll. So of those people who responded, we have a divide between A, B, and E equally, but a number of people who put their comments also on the in the text area. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to our host, who will introduce our presenter. Helen, it's all yours.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you guys are, or even if you're halfway around the world. And, of course, we've had some great international participation in this series, as John mentioned. I'm really delighted to be here with you today for our last and final presentation for this year. And I'm delighted, certainly, to introduce Rames Sabestiashraf, who is the CEO of Rames Systems, who will be telling us about their product, RCampus. Ramesh has over 15 years of teaching experience and a strong involvement in developing learning communities. He holds a master's degree in computer science from Cal State Long Beach with a thesis in adaptive computing and a bachelor of science in computer science from Cal Poly Pomona. So between Ramesh, John, and I, and certainly some of you who are online, I think we're representing for the West Coast today. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Ramesh to tell us a little bit about RCampus. And as we're going through today's presentation, please do feel free to take advantage of the chat window and enter any questions or comments or any issues that may come up for you as particularly relevant to your own campus inside the chat window. John and I will be monitoring the chat window as Ramesh is presenting, and in appropriate places either during or after the presentation, we'll be sure to ask those questions of Ramesh so that he can address questions and issues that are of specific concern to you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ramesh to tell us a little bit about RCampus.
Well, hello, everyone. Thanks, Helen, for the great introduction, and thanks, Trent and John. I also want to thank AAEEBL for leading all this development, and also ePAC and ePortfolio California, and all of you for coming to the finale of the ePortfolio series. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, why we started the RCampus project. As Helen mentioned, my background is in computer science, and I've been in software development for over 20 years. I know the picture doesn't show that, but I've been in software development. And I've been teaching since '93, stopped teaching a couple of years ago. So a lot of my interest has been in learning. Even when I did my undergrad and graduate work, it was all in machine learning and metacognition and construction of knowledge. So it was a natural move for me to work more in learning and learning technologies. Most of my software development work has been in the last 20 years in the education industry. So all of that kind of naturally led into the development of the RCampus project. A little about RCampus itself. It started as a need for myself and for my students. So as we started developing parts of the RCampus, I was introduced to, I should probably change the slide as I'm talking about these. I was introduced to authentic assessments and integrated learning, which was a part of my interest before I knew what integrated learning was. So a lot of the work that we did in RCampus started as a personal need, and it grew into a full project and into a full platform. So as far as the ePortfolio goes, our concentration is authentic assessments, integrated learning, showcasing is a huge part of it, of course, and evidence-based learning and the collection of evidence. As I go through this, I'm going to lay some grounds as far as how we define what an ePortfolio is. ePortfolio has many definitions or has many views to many different people. So some of the things that we wanted to have as a part of RCampus was for it to be easy to use. And I'm sure everybody says easy to use, but that was one of our main concerns. I taught at a community college level, where there's a lot of students that come in just for a few courses and they leave. So there's not a lot of time for orientation of the platform. So we wanted the platform to be very easy so somebody can come in and start using it, and we've accomplished that. Another part of it was to have the platform to be on demand. Back in the early days of the internet, or back in the 90s, when Yahoo and Google and everybody came up with instant access to email, I was wishing that there was a company that would come up with something that would give easy access to learning technologies. And somewhere that a teacher could go, an instructor could go and build a course, build ePortfolios and what have you, and nothing happened, and so finally we decided to do it ourselves. A couple other things that was very important to us was, one is we wanted something general purpose, so the platform doesn't put any restrictions on the use. So our ePortfolio platform, I'm going to talk about it a little later, can be used for student portfolios, program level ePortfolios, or department ePortfolios, if you will, and faculty portfolios. The platform, RCampus, is very comprehensive. It has a very robust assessment behind it, and it has a built-in learning management system. For smaller schools that don't have a learning management, that becomes very important. Security and privacy, again, as an instructor, security was always very important to us, especially student privacy. And we realized that by design we were FERPA compliant, even though we didn't try to be FERPA compliant. Everything is FERPA compliant. Privacy is very important. One important aspect of RCampus was we hear about user centricity a lot. Not to only be user-centric, but also be user-led, meaning the user has control over the portfolios. And we have a dual model, meaning in some institutions you don't want students to have full control over the portfolio because you're using the portfolio for collection of student work, and you don't want any confusion. And in some areas you want the students to have full control. So we're both user-led and user-centric. Affordability is very important to us. We provide a lot of our tools for free to individual users, and we have a very affordable cost or price schedule for institutions. And finally, lifelong access and lifelong learning was very important. So again, anyone at RCampus can build and maintain the ePortfolio lifelong. I'm going to go to the next slide and get into the ePortfolios. So the heart of the ePortfolio is the evidence, so whether it's evidence of learning or evidence of assessment, which leads to or which support learning. So in RCampus, you can develop tasks and help students to develop artifacts, reflect on the artifacts. Both evaluators, which are faculty in most cases, or maybe employers, can reflect on the artifact, and the learner can reflect. There's a feedback process on both ends, and there's an assessment. And the way we view assessment is not a multiple choice test, even though we have that piece. It's more of assessment to support learning. So it's very learning-centric. As far as the platform itself, it helps the student, faculty, and organization, on the organization and collection of all these items, on the presentation of their work, and then finally aggregation of data, aggregation of all these elements that I mentioned, analysis of data, and alignment with the outcomes. I hope everybody can hear me. I just heard a beep.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just switching slides. We look at our system at having three layers: a presentation layer with the public pages and protected pages, which is the showcasing part, a learning layer, and assessment layer. And I'll show more of these as I go through the slides. As I mentioned, we want it to be general purpose. Students, faculty, and programs can build their own ePortfolios. Of course, the purpose is different. For students, is more of the learning portfolio, and faculty is more of showcasing their work and collection of their work. And the program is collection of student and faculty work. And all this work can be aligned with standards and outcomes. And all of that can be fed into institutional monitoring, which is a part of our system as well, for analysis and monitoring of student performance and as I mentioned, faculty and programs. So getting to the heart of this, we do have a very well-balanced solution where showcasing and assessment we consider both a big part of learning. So we do offer showcasing portfolios. And if I can switch now, I'm going to try to switch over to, change the thing. Switch over to my screen to show you the showcasing portfolio. Let's see if it works. Just 1 second. Technical difficulty on my side. Sorry about that. Again, I'm trying to, one more time, see if it.
So while Ramesh is working on that, again, if anyone has any questions about, about our campus so far and what's been presented, please go ahead and put that into the chat window. I mean, one thought is folks can, what's happening at your institutions in terms of, is your institution thinking about more about the showcasing aspect, the assessment aspect, with respect to the three layers that Ramesh showed with, from the student level to the faculty level to the program level? Why don't we ask people to go ahead and write in where your institution is having a specific focus.
And your screen is now showing you have your website that shows the matrix assessment on your screen.
Perfect. So actually, I'm going to come back to this, and I want to start with showcasing ePortfolios a little bit, and I'll come back to the other screen. Sorry about the delay. This is a new system to us. Okay, so here's the showcasing portfolio, and as you see, it looks like a full website, and students have full control on the creativity part of it, as well as the layout of the screen, the coloration, and everything. This is a high school student that has interest in space technologies. A student can build multiple ePortfolios. So the same student can build, I'm going to show you some other examples of ePortfolios. This is another ePortfolio by the same student, and it's a first-year experience. And the connection was lost on my end. Can you hear me?
We do hear you. Did you drop out of the website?
No, all of a sudden it says connection failed, Illuminate failed.
Okay.
Oh, it timed me out. It says connection time. Let me see if I can try again.
Well, we now have your well-balanced solution slide in the whiteboard.
Right. And Illuminate just dropped everything on my end. I hope everybody can hear me.
You're going to need to log into Illuminate again, and we'll, Helen, why don't you look at the discussion. When you get logged back in, we'll let you know that you're back on.
No, actually, it just let me control. If you can make me a moderator.
I'll let you a moderator now. I'll lift you the moderator.
If I can do it.
You now have control.
All right. So going back to Wi-Fi. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay. You should be able to see my screen again.
And your screen is there. We see the two.
The first year.
That seems appropriate for Little Bunny.
Yeah. So this is a first-year experience ePortfolio. Again, this is a showcasing ePortfolio. The next one is another showcasing portfolio for career development. So this is a resume portfolio that the student can put resume cover letter, if you see on the side. Sample work as far as videos. We embedded some YouTube videos. Hopefully you can see that. And one of the more exciting things that students like in our ePortfolios is these boxes where you lay out the page very easily. You can change the layout. You can move these boxes around. These are drag and drop. And you can embed, of course, images and audio and video inside these boxes. So the students have full control over this. Now, one of the situations with purely student-led ePortfolios is when students put things in places that are hard to find. And it becomes an issue for institutions and faculty that are evaluating or looking for student work. So the student can basically put the cover letter in any parts of this ePortfolio, and some do and some don't follow instructions sometimes. And so for that purpose, we have a secondary type of more of a guided learning ePortfolio using matrices. And a matrix is a 2x2 dimension. It's a multi-dimensional. It's a two-dimensional. We have a multi-dimensional matrix as well. It's a two-dimensional structure where you design as the scaffold for the ePortfolio, and students just plug in their work. And this is another example of an ePortfolio. So all of these belong to the same student. Now, with the matrices, you can control and view the student progress as they work on the cells of the matrix. The cells of the matrix have their own workflow, and of course their assessment reports and other reports that you can pull from. I'm not going to delve into that too much because it gets very involved. Another piece of our ePortfolio that I'm trying to jump into is our rubric system. We have the most comprehensive rubric system out on the internet. Part of it is free. We have the largest gallery of rubrics. If you go to irubric.com, which is a part of RCampus, you'll see about 203,000 rubrics built as iRubric. And you can use and repurpose any of those rubrics. We're doing a study, for example, with AACMU on value rubrics and how people repurpose value rubrics, and we're going to showcase it at the AAEEBL conference this year. We showcased parts of it last year and then do more this year. So you can have access to value rubrics. I encourage you to go to iRubric, get value rubrics, make your changes to value rubrics, because AACMU is very interested in seeing what changes are made by the institution or by individual faculty. So here's a rubric for assessment, and this is for the assessment of the matrix. And to assess the student work, you can easily select the cells of the rubric by clicking on them. You can leave feedback, and Feedback Plus allows you for rich media feedback. Go through this and save the score, and the score is saved into the learning matrix. Multiple evaluators can perform this type of assessment on the same student. You can bring in employers and others into the system to either review or do assessments and provide feedback to students as well. I'm going to switch back to the presentation here. Just want to give you a little feel of the system and then go into other parts of the system on what they can do, what it can do. One of the features of RCampus, of course, is everybody gets involved. Students are usually focal point. They can do peer assessment, faculty reviews, other reviewers and employers can come in. Administrators can get real-time view of student progress in forms of rubric data or matrix data, and in alignment with standards and outcomes that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. Instructional designers can help with the development of learning scaffolding and other materials, rubrics, for example, and accreditation visits. During accreditation visits, you can showcase the students' work in alignment with your standards and outcomes. I mentioned our rubric system. Each institution gets an institutional gallery of rubrics that's only shared within the institution. And everybody has access to the public or global gallery that we call it, with the 200,000 plus rubrics. And the data from these rubrics can be aligned with standards and will be available in our reporting system and in our analysis tool to get more detailed and authentic data from student performance. Managing learning outcomes and standards is another part of RCampus. We have a collaborative piece for managing standards and outcomes. That's one of the things that was very important to us as well, and collaboration within the platform. There are many collaboration tools, many feedback tools. We have a unified messaging system that collects all the messages that come through various areas into a unified system, into a unified area, inbox, if you will. It replaces your email because that's very important in a lot of areas, especially in K-12, when students don't have access to email or to external email. You can align these rubrics and matrices within the portfolio with your standards, and you can easily configure the standards repository. You can have multiple standards housed within the repository. So, for example, if your institution has requires NCATE as well as, let's say, SACS or middle state standards, as well as your own institutional program level and course level standards, you can manage all of them within our standards repository. Another piece of the system is the data analysis tool. With the data analysis, basically, we aggregate the data through these rubrics and matrices and combine them into data aggregation. You can also get raw data reports. But the aggregation is very important because you can do them by standards, you can do them by individual rubrics, and pull all that data into something that's very easily generated. Our reporting system is very easy. It's only one screen. There are not multiple steps into designing a report, and it's very, very easy understood with the visualization. I don't know if there are any questions. Should we break for some questions?
Sure, we can definitely do that, and there have been a couple of questions that that have come up. One question that came up, let me go ahead, and I guess most recently about the iRubrics is, let's see. So this is from Alexis, is that, Alexis at her campus is currently using task stream generated rubrics for course assessment, and wondering, I guess, if you could talk a little bit more about the iRubrics and whether or not, the rubrics are the same, or what it would mean. Is iRubrics intended only to interface with RCampus, or what if a school was using a different ePortfolio system?
Very good question. Let me show you iRubrics just very briefly. Maybe I go here. Let's go to the gallery. So this gallery of rubrics, this is our public global gallery, and anyone can go and find rubrics here and repurpose the rubrics. Value rubrics are a part of this gallery as well, so you can find value rubrics by ACNU and modify those rubrics if you want. This is mainly used as our version of open educational resources. It's free to use and free to build rubrics. The rubrics integrate with our own ePortfolio system and the matrix system.
Ramesh, can you share your screen again? I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
There's a lot of steps here.
I'm used to go to webinar, and with that one, you let's see if it's the screen gets shared with everybody. Not this one. Okay, let's see if it works.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, now I guess it's not the right screen. Okay, this is the one. Sorry about that. All right, so this is the gallery of rubrics. 203,000 rubrics have been built, and they're available through the gallery by grade level, subject, and type. And this one integrates directly with our ePortfolio system. You can use it for the actual assessment, as I showed you, by clicking on the cells of the rubric. We also have an external integration with the Sakai learning management system through the gradebook and the assignment tool. But for the purpose of our assessments within our ePortfolio, this is only working with our own ePortfolios. It's not something that you can plug into other ePortfolio systems easily. We have some that use other systems, whether learning management or ePortfolios, other systems that use this just for the assessment, but they run these two in parallel. there's no integration between the two systems. Okay. I hope I answered the question. So,
great. So a couple other questions. So could you advise, like, how I guess this comes from Ranveer. Can you please advise how you came up with the rubrics based on the needs of students and faculty portfolios? And I think one question, and again, maybe how you built the collection of rubrics in this here. And then also, one question that relates to sort of a lifelong ePortfolio. What happens, when students become a faculty or a graduate student becomes a faculty member, or at some point, or vice versa? Do they transition to a different portfolio? How is it set up?
Okay. So let me address the question about rubrics. As one of our original plans, we're very pro openness of the tool and open access and instant and on-demand access. So when we developed our rubric, and it was a part of our ePortfolio system, we decided to open it up to allow faculty and students, if they want to build rubrics easily. So these 203,000 rubrics that you see, except the value rubrics that was built by AACNU, pretty much everything else has been built by our users. We have about a little over 130,000 educators that are members of RCampus platform on various levels. So out of these 130,000, some of them have built these rubrics and contributed that to the gallery. So if you go anywhere in the gallery, let's say biology rubrics, then you see that it's built by somebody. Some of these are used in their own classrooms outside of this, and some are used in the ePortfolios and classrooms within the RCampus system. You can easily open any of these rubrics, make a copy for yourself within the system, and modify it. And if you're done with it, you can move it to another system if you want. Again, this is our version of open educational resources. As far as ePortfolios and the longevity of ePortfolios, if a student becomes a faculty member, or if a student, let's look at the student, let's say there's a high school student that builds an ePortfolio. We have a lot of middle school students actually building ePortfolios. So as they go through to high school, to college, maybe to graduate school, they can build multiple ePortfolios. So each person can build multiple ePortfolios for different audiences. In a way, you can look at ePortfolios as resumes. You might have 5 different versions of your resumes, and you can have 5 different versions of your ePortfolios for different audiences. All those ePortfolios that I showed you earlier, the tabs are still up here, those are all, they all belong to the same user account. So the same user can build all these ePortfolios and share them any way they like. I hope I answered. Huh?
I think you have. Thank you. And again, if anyone would like additional clarification or have other questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat window. There have been also some additional questions about the integration of RCampus with existing course or learning management systems, such as Blackboard and Moodle. Can you speak a little bit about how that might work? Okay.
So RCampus ePortfolios come with our own learning management system. So we, as I mentioned, we try to be comprehensive with a system that does all of it. With other systems, right now we have, we're one of the first ones that have an integration with Google Apps for Education, and we have a few hundred institutions that are using our Google Apps integration. That's a single sign-on integration. It's not an integration necessarily with an LMS. We've been waiting for standards to kind of mature for learning management systems to do the integration through some standards like IMS standards. And they're maturing up now. So our ePortfolios, so we're working on basically LTI type of integration into other systems. And we're developing some of those, and LTI is developing as we're developing as well. So it may be a little delayed. I hope I answered that question. So basically from Blackboard, Desire to Learn, other systems that are LTI compliant, you would be able to integrate with RCampus ePortfolios and as well as iRubric. We're doing our first LTI with Sakai in addition to the integration that we already have with Sakai. So we're going to test that with Sakai through different areas of Sakai and then move into full release of our LTI. I hope I sound too techy.
That's good. I can see some responses. People
responded
positively to that. So one question, again, I think for many of the people who've joined our webinar, there's a strong interest in assessment. And I was wondering if you might speak to a little bit about the kinds of reports, and like an assessment manager or someone who's leading an accreditation effort, what kinds of reports could be generated through the RCampus system?
Okay, I don't want to show all the reports or any of the reports maybe here right now because it can get a little complicated. But basically, there are three types of reports that I can explain to you without getting into them. One is just the raw data report, and raw data comes from all the rubrics that were used, whether through the matrices or through iRubric itself. We also do aggregation reports. So, for example, a faculty member can aggregate the performance on a single rubric that they use in their courses, and they get an aggregate of all their students and how they're performing. And the report also can be drilled down into let's say one student has done, or students, 20% of students have done poorly in their organizational skills, and they can see which students and which assessment contributed to that poor evaluation or poor performance. At the higher level, you can expand it to department chair, to program level, and to institutional level type of aggregation. So somebody at the institutional level can look at everybody that uses a single rubric, for example, and see how students perform on that rubric. If it's an institutional rubric, which, for example, value rubrics would be one. And in addition to that, we have, so we understand that in a lot of institutions, faculty want to have the freedom to build their own rubrics for assessment, and building an institutional rubric or even program level may require a lot of committee meetings. So we allow faculty to build their rubrics, align them with the same standards and outcomes, and then we aggregate the data through these standards and outcomes. If anyone wants to see more of these, because the time is short today and I don't want to show something that, if anyone wants to show, please feel free to contact me directly. I should type it somewhere. I'm typing it in the chat box. Please feel free to contact me directly, or I'm typing and talking. Or contact info@rcampus.com. And we can show you more detail, show you the reports. It takes about an hour about different reports.
That sounds great, Ramesh. Because I know Stephen had some questions about, how customizable are the reports, as well as is it possible to perhaps download the data so that it can be manipulated perhaps in another program, whether it's Excel or pivot tables or even like a statistical package?
Absolutely, yeah. We have some data, some visualization of data, and those are basically based on the criteria that you put in. You can also download aggregate data in percentage and number of user or number of students per category of the rubric. And you can also download the entire raw data, which is very easy to understand. It gets downloaded automatically in a CSV format, both aggregate and raw and individualized data. And you can drop them in Excel or SPSS. A lot of people use SPSS for more, I would say, reporting needs. Yeah.
Okay, great. You talked a little bit about the flexibility of the platform and certainly an interest or a value of RCampus with respect to lifelong learning. And I was thinking, have you seen much in terms of how your product really helps facilitate transitions either from K-12 to to college or university, or community college to four-year institution, and then also post-graduation, after one leaves formal higher education. If you have any ideas or thoughts or observations about how this tool can help facilitate those transition points.
Well, absolutely, yeah. On the assessment part of it with the matrices belong to the institution because they're used for feedback and assessment. And the institution owns those matrices. On the showcasing side, where I have it right on the screen, the students can start, actually I kind of showed it in a way that it could be a high school student, and as they go through college, for example, this is the first year experience at the college, and they can do a resume or career portfolio and so on. So they can have multiple portfolios and showcase them differently. Now, the transition between one institution to another institution, actually, some are using these ePortfolios as a form of applying to another school. We actually had one student that emailed us 2 years ago when the economy kind of collapsed and said, it was really hard for me to get a job. I created an ePortfolio on RCampus, send the ePortfolio, a link to the ePortfolio with my resume, and I got a job within a week because the resume was not doing justice to that student, and the showcasing part that the student did said a lot about the skills of that student. So now transition between one institution to another institution, we have, for example, one institution that uses our matrices, actually there are two of them, that use the matrix in their application process. So they ask the student to upload previous transcripts, to upload some of their work, to upload a little resume, if you will, or a bio into the matrix, and then both students and the institution can keep track of the progress, and the matrix would look like this. I've talked about the matrix a lot, and I haven't really shown you because, again, it gets into another area. With a matrix, basically, you can design the skill set and scaffold the learning or whatever you're trying to collect very easily and assess. And it has a workflow of completion in different areas of the matrix.
This is John. I was having a question about your rubrics and with their integration into the portfolio. Do you have any sense of how many of your clients are using the rubrics, giving them to students that they use for self-assessment or scaffolding as they're going through reaching objectives, and how many are using the rubrics for summative or formal assessment or licensure or exit? What is the range of the uses of the rubrics in terms of personal use by the individual for self-guidance versus institution using the rubrics for formal assessment?
Okay, that's a good question. For my own use, I don't have the exact number, but we have a lot of interest in students being able to access the rubric prior to assessment and do self-assessments. Now, how many of them actually practice that, I don't know exactly. Something that my students liked, and I liked about rubrics, was because the rubric can give the expectations to students, there's less confusion on their end. So that was one of the reasons that we actually developed the iRubric piece. I would say probably at least 50% of users are interested in self-assessment if they're not doing it in self-assessment. Some of our users are also allowing students to build rubrics. I'm in favor of actually students building rubrics as a learning practice. We've done that. I've done that in my classroom. It worked great. So some actually have students build a rubric and self-assess. Some of them use iRubric because it's an open platform to build rubric, and everybody self-assess on that, in addition to what they're doing, the formative assessments that they do in the classroom.
With that large quantity of rubrics, have you or anyone or your clients done sort of an analysis of the rubrics that they're using? I guess I'm curious as to look into rubrics that are looking at broader thinking skills, critical thinking issues, broad communication skills versus rubrics that are down to very specific task-oriented, the ability to do specific tasks. That might be like an advanced hiking program. So give a sense of the range of the granularity from very specific, unique assessments to very more broader, general rubric models.
We review the rubrics a lot, and we see a lot of rubrics get repurposed. For example, there could be an ePortfolio rubric that's designed by one and it gets repurposed by somebody else, and it becomes a writing rubric, and it gets repurposed down the road, becomes a WebQuest rubric, and so they keep kind of morphing into different types of rubrics, which is very interesting. We've had actually some of that in value rubrics that turn into something totally differently. We haven't done a formal assessment as far as what rubrics are used and what they're used for, but one of my interests, and if anyone is interested, we are interested in research groups that can come in and do the assessment, and we give them certain access to the data to do that type of assessment. We have built it's not showing on our rubric, but we have built a rubric, what we call a family tree, and it shows how the rubric actually evolves into multiple rubrics and morphs into different types of rubrics.
I love the image of a rubric family tree. I would actually think, what fruit will that rubric bear? You did mention your work with IMS. ePortfolio California is working with PEST and standards for the exchange of data around electronic portfolios. Initially, what we're calling an academic ePortfolio with transcript information and student artifacts. How are you working with IMS and PESC and some of the other standards organizations?
Well, we're not working directly with IMS. We're using IMS standards to develop our LTI. And once it's ready, we're going to basically submit it to IMS for compliance and to put their seal on or put their certificates on it. So we are familiar with LTI and BLTI, and we're working on it. As far as PESC, you and I talked about it, and we're really interested in working with these standards groups. A lot of these standards are forming right now as far as assessment, transcripts, ePortfolios, and so on. So we are interested. It's just the matter of the bandwidth and the time that we have. But we do consider ourselves, and you all know, more of a research and development company, and we're interested, as I mentioned, to work with various research groups and standards groups.
You mentioned sort of being research and development, new directions, and you have a large K-12 community. Are you engaged with the new common core standards that are emerging, or the common core curriculum that's emerging in the K-12 community?
Yes, yeah. I'm still trying to understand the Common Core because it's very nice. I'm myself I'm on a board of a nonprofit that's in STEM education, and we work with Common Core a lot. In our repository, we have the Common Core. Some of our users are building rubrics and matrices around the Common Core that we're hoping to bring into the global gallery and be able to share with everybody. As you know, Common Core is evolving as we go, and it's been quickly adopted by a lot of different K-12 institutions. So I would say, me personally, I'm very familiar with Common Core. I don't consider myself an expert by any means.
As we near the end of our time together, one question that's been sort of in the discussion in the chat window has really been around sort of Web 2.0 sort of features, RSS feeds, how students might, or how ePortfolio users might keep their ePortfolio up to date. And I was wondering if you might be able to speak a little bit about what kinds of features are available in RCampus with respect to sharing your portfolio, keeping it up to date, and so on.
Okay, yeah, I kind of didn't mention that, huh? Yeah, all the portfolios, first of all, talking about Web 2.0, all the portfolios can be updated online. You don't need an external tool to update the portfolios. There's an online editor that you use On some of the pages of the ePortfolios, let's see if I have any here, what we call sliding tiles, these guys. I'm going to show you briefly because this is kind of interesting to see. So I logged in as a student. As the student logs in, they quickly see these orange buttons everywhere that tells them what to do. So you can manage the portfolio, edit header, edit menus, edit the page itself. So the students are directed into different areas of the editing of the portfolio. On top, there's the submission of this ePortfolio. If they use our own learning management or matrices, they can directly embed this ePortfolio and submit it as an assignment or as an artifact. So this ePortfolio can be an artifact within a matrix. And the matrix can hold multiple ePortfolios. They can also invite others by email or invite others through internally within the system. There are many collaboration tools, including the message board. Each ePortfolio has 2 levels of messaging. One is for guests and one is for reviewers. Somebody would join the ePortfolio and they can be promoted to a reviewer, and they can and then they have a separate message board. And within this ePortfolio, something I was going to show you is some of the Web 2.0 features as far as laying out the portfolio. When you go to edit page, you can edit the top content, which is open, and change the layout of the tiles into many different layouts. Let's see, did I miss anything? Oh, there's a quick post that looks somewhat like Twitter, but it's individualized to each ePortfolio, so anyone can post messages. And the owner of the portfolio can block others from posting messages or block unknown people from posting messages. I hope we're not going over time. It's 10:56 here.
No, this is fine. And I think this last bit actually is very, very helpful to get some sense of what the student interface looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Well, again, Ramesh, if you don't mind, just go ahead and put your email back into the chat box and go ahead and close out the application sharing. I don't know if John has any sort of final slides to show on the whiteboard, but I think we are nearing the end of our time together. I'd like to, on behalf of ePortfolio California, AAEEBL, and ePAC, at the ePortfolio Community of Practice, I'd like to thank Ramesh for his presentation today and really giving us a great overview of RCampus as another ePortfolio platform that I think is worth taking a look at and also following, especially with, I think, this unique feature of the rubrics, the quite extensive rubric collection, which would be available as part of this tool. Again, thank you very much, Ramesh, for your presentation, and thank you to all of you who joined us today for this last and final session of our webinar series this year. Again, we at ePAC, ePortfolio California, and AAEEBL are very interested in your feedback as to the usefulness of the webinar series, what you liked and what you didn't, and how we might improve upon it, especially as we evaluate our series this summer and decide, what we want to do next and what would be most useful to the broader ePortfolio community as something that we'd want to do next year. So again, please feel free to contact any one of us with any suggestions or other comments. We really would welcome your feedback. I think with that, we'll go ahead and end up today. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And we'll be shutting down the recording. Thank you again. As soon as this recording is available,